I'm Danny Hicks. Welcome to the Not So Secret Agent podcast, where we learn from top real estate agents how they maintain a thriving business, all while living the good life. Today's guest is actually in the studio with me. I have Chris Parks from Atlantic Coast Mortgage. Thank you so much for being on the program, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's awfully kind of you to include me.
Absolutely. Well, Chris and I are about to jump on the plane to head to the Mastermind convention in San Diego. So it's kind of cool to get to hook up before we go, and then maybe even kind of talk when we're there and afterwards. That should be fun. So Chris, tell me a little bit about how you fell into this crazy game of real estate and lending and that sort of thing.
Wow, that's a loaded question. So I've actually been in housing since 1993. I started out as a mobile home repairman. You can't get much lower than that, just to let you know. And so I've worked on mobile homes that should have been burned, and I've tried to help people in housing ever since. I actually got into selling real estate through a builder in 2005. I was his director of operations, and I managed his real estate agents as well as negotiated all of his contracts for a period of about 10 years. And so actually just under. I like to round up. Can you tell I'm in sales? So from 2005 to 2013, that's when we parted ways, and that's when I got into mortgages. And so the theory behind it is I know so many people in real estate, let me just call on those people and build a mortgage business out of it. The theory wasn't quite as good in the execution, but it's, fast forward 10 years, here we are, 2013, as I'm starting my 10th year in business, and I'm very thankful for the outcome. It's actually been very good.
Yeah, it's funny how we think that friends and family are just going to come running to us. I have zero experience, but yeah, you're going to use me as your agent.
I had some very kind people early on that did throw me some bones. It was very kind of them to do that, but I do have to say that knowing what I know now, I was very inexperienced, didn't know what I was doing, and certainly didn't deserve their business at all. They were just very kind. But the first year in anything real estate related is absolutely terrible. So it was terrible. So
yeah, I was going to say my first year, I think I did 10 deals. And I was like, oh my God.
I did more than that, but I did 45. I served 45 families, but in my world, where you make a whole lot less per transaction, and back then in 2013, you're mainly dealing with foreclosures. So in essence, it was a pretty tough gig all around, just trying to get all that done. But it was, having said that, it was the struggle was real, but the struggle is actually very beneficial. So.
Well, they say, anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that sort of thing. The struggle is how we know what to appreciate now, and it's also where we draw those skills that make you successful today, probably. I mean, that's what I found in my career. Do you think that was true for you?
Yeah, so I started off thinking that I knew what I was doing. I think that's what every entrepreneur kind of does, right? And then it's not until you actually, stub your toe and maybe break a fingernail that you kind of figure out that you don't really actually know what you're doing. And that took a little while, but then your pride kind of kicks in and you just kind of fight your way through it. And, it was a challenging time. I mean, in 2013, the economy wasn't doing great. And full disclosure, the builder did fire me because of lack of sales. Nothing was selling, but that's how he chose not to pay unemployment. So it's one of those things where out of the heat, you go from the frying pan to the boiling pot, or the other way around, doesn't really matter. What ended up happening was it was a challenging time, and what I've learned is that what got me through 1 year isn't necessarily going to get me to the next year.
Now, the one thing that you can count on being the same is that every year is different.
Yes, and the top clients 1 year are not the top clients next year. So,
well, it's also there is no silver bullet in this business. It's silver buckshot. We're in that general vicinity. I'm going to do these activities and see where where we're prosperous.
Yeah, I think that if I were to start over, though, because I took the approach of, unlike the conference we're going to, which has very targeted, hey, work with your relationships and work with the people you know and try to build those relationships and build a deeper one, I took the smile and dial approach for the first year. And so my regiment was, Green Beret focus of telemarketers. I literally was wearing that phone out on a daily basis. I would make over 100 to 150 phone calls a day, and I would set 5 to 10 appointments per day. And
that sounds painful.
it was very painful. And then the crazy thing is I went back and looked at my numbers at the end of the first year, and all of my business except for one transaction came from the people I already knew.
That's hilarious. I mean, I was really lucky, I guess. I found referral like right off the bat. Like literally, I've never done anything but what I do now. Mm-hmm. You know, I make a few extra calls. I call different people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've definitely tweaked that, but I've never done anything else. So I've definitely been blessed in that. But that's funny that you went Green Beret style and still wound up with the same results. And
oh, it's just absolutely crazy. And then what I realized is if I'd have spent more time focusing on those relationships, I probably would have had a lesser need for a long runway. Because literally the first year was terrible. Second year was pretty bad too, but first year was just absolutely the roughest thing I've ever experienced.
But you use that, right? Like you're like, okay, I've touched the bottom. I know where it is.
Oh, yeah. I think I drug bottom for a while. You can probably see it right across the side of my face. But yeah, no, you touched bottom, and it was definitely one of those things that once you started seeing success. I mean, the crazy thing is that light bulb goes off. You know, once you're like, I can make it doing this. And I remember that light bulb going off because even though the craziness of what I was doing, I was actually building momentum. Mm-hmm. And so in building the momentum, what I found is that that momentum really springboarded with some time. And by the end of my second year, I remember getting my first $1 million month, which in my business is not like $1 million month in yours, but it's you know, it was one of those where you got the check and you're like, I can actually make it in this business. I can actually feed my family. I can pay my bills. And fast forward, I mean, you know, it's rinse and repeat. And so now that you've got a groove, you know what you're doing, the track is the same. It's, you know, you're serving families at a very high level. You're helping them. You're assessing what they need. You're giving them direction. Sometimes you're helping them for years. I helped one guy, this is a crazy story, but I helped one guy who was homeless. He was living in a shed in somebody's backyard. I think it was a family member's backyard, but he was living in a shed. And I helped him, you know, establish credit. I helped him fix his credit, helped him learn how to put a budget together and save. It was a 2-year process, but, you know, and I didn't do it for him. I just kind of showed him what to do. 2 years later, he moved into his house.
Can you do it for someone? I don't feel like you can.
No, I think that's the misnomer with today's culture. Everybody wants you to do it for you. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that, like we started the conversation, the struggle is real. But without the struggle, you're really not getting anything of value.
Yeah, I always use the analogy of the personal trainer. Like, they can tell you to do sit-ups, but you've got to do the sit-ups.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. They can say, hey, look, fix your form and that sort of thing. You're going to be more successful listening to them. But the whole idea that they're just going to be, you know, do it for you is not true in anything.
I think that what it comes down to with that is you have to have a motivation that's beyond your comfort level in order to be able to take you there. I mean, most people refer to it as your why.
Right.
Okay, which is actually one of your questions. What is your why? Is you have to have a motivation that's greater than the comfort level that you're currently in. And because quite frankly, at the builder, I was very comfortable. I was making a decent salary, you know, but I was never getting anywhere, but it was a decent salary. And then, you know, I got into mortgages, and I remember I actually had a builder, one of the big builders in town, come and ask me to work for him. And believe it or not, and I was struggling with something terrible. But I remember looking into the future and then looking at my present and and I felt like I would have given away a huge part of myself to surrender when I could see the momentum coming. And the independence. I mean, I love the independence. And so what I found out was as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper into what I was doing is that the real reason for what I'm not motivated by money. And so some people are motivated by that Miami lifestyle where everything's flashing, you got the cars and all that stuff. I am motivated by paid for. Okay, so I don't necessarily want to carry any debt. I've seen what that looks like. I don't like it. But I'm actually more motivated for serving the family And so helping people accomplish their dreams of homeownership, like that homeless guy I was telling you about, helping him get on his feet, but also not just them. I mean, even the people who are buying their second or third home or investment home, I'm motivated by helping them get what they need to make sure that they're accomplishing whatever their goals are, whether it's their first time home and this is going to be the place where they raise their family, or this is their third home, which is how they're going to be paying for vacations or how they're going to be paying for kids' colleges or how other things like that. You know, having been on both sides of those, you know, having seen the need and been feeling the need personally, and then seeing what it takes to get there. Some people just need a little bit of an orientation, a little bit of education, a little bit of a push. And so that's really kind of getting back to the piece where you have to have something bigger than your comfort level. That was part of it, is at the service of people. And so when you're looking at the clients, I've served people who the smallest mortgage I've done was $46,000.
Is that even legal? I mean,
most banks won't even take them.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, they won't even touch them. And I did it just not because I wanted it, but because that family needed the help and nobody else would touch it.
Right. Yeah, some of the ones that are the most gratifying are the ones we make the least on.
That's definitely the case, yeah.
And they're the most appreciative, and believe it or not, their appreciation goes really far for us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You want somebody to see the value that you're bringing. Like, I've had really high dollar deals where, yeah, he could have jumped on the phone, he could have called anyone he wanted, and he knew it, and he was not afraid to tell me that. You know what I mean? Now, did he think I did a good job? Sure. Did he tell me that? No. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most definitely with that. It does. They are the most work. Anything that's, especially the first-time home buyers, they tend to be a lot of work. But those who need a lot of help, they just need a lot of work. It's okay. That's part of serving the family. You know, what I have learned is that those that need your help will wear your phone out, but those who don't need your help will call you once. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn how to pick. Mm-hmm.
Well, are their goals obtainable, right? Mm-hmm. Are they going to be willing to do those sit-ups? I mean, you know.
Well, that's a huge piece of it is when you're looking at a client and if you give them a set of dues and they don't spend their time doing them, you really know that they're not that motivated. They're not motivated to move past where their current comfort level is. Mm-hmm. Like this homeless guy that I was telling you about, he moved past it. He was like, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, well, he had a job. It wasn't the job. He needed to focus on what he was doing with the money that came from that job. And then we had to challenge him to find something better. And then we had to challenge him to budget. And then we had to challenge him to pay off his student loans. And then we had to, or get him current. And then we had to challenge him to save money. And then 2 years later, it took a long time to get him there. But he was willing. He was not just able, he was willing. And he took the steps to do that. And then at some point he was ready. So those challenging times.
Right? I mean, from a shed to a house is a big step. Did he have the shed moved to his current property? Because I feel like that, hang on to it as a reminder.
That's a great question, but I think it was a shed of somebody else's rented house.
Oh, so. Yes. So no, it wasn't his shed to take. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So we talked about your why, kind of helping people. Who's on your team now? Because when you started, I'm sure it was just you, smiling and dialing as hard as you could, and now it's not that. You have a business.
I do. I have a business. I actually have a team of experts that help me. I have 2 assistants currently. I have Amanda, and we call her Nella because she has a really long name that nobody can pronounce in English, so Nella is her name. And they both assist me. She's bilingual in Spanish. That's part of the reason. So. And I'm bilingual in Spanish, so we kind of work back and forth with all sorts of clients. But yeah, I have Amanda and I have Nella, and then I have a team behind me that really is very supportive. I have underwriters, I have processors, I have closers, I have all sorts of people who can help and assist. But the main 2 who are extremely vested in my business are going to be Nella and Amanda, and they're. Amanda and I have been, she actually was assigned to me back in 2013 when I first got into the business. And so we've kind of gone our separate ways. We've come back together, gone our separate ways, come back together. And now we've been together in business for approximately 5 years now. So it's been a good thing. She's very dedicated. She has the same service mentality of trying to serve the family. And so does Nella. And so Nella comes from Venezuela, which Venezuela has a crazy situation going on there. And she got out during that crazy situation, came here to this country. And she's worked hard to try to establish herself. She got married in this country. She's now set down roots. And so, the Latino client or the international client, I work a lot with the international client, they're trying to start over in many cases. And in her case, she was starting over. She left and has political asylum, trying to get out and make things happen. And so she understands the struggle. And the struggle of the immigrant is very real, and they have to set something up.
I think that's really cool. I always joke around with my clients because a majority of my clients are first-generation immigrants. Like the joke we've got going is like, I am completely an American. I'm not bilingual in any way, shape, or form, but yet somehow I keep finding this client. Like I wear full bathing suits to the beach. I love ranch dressing. Like I'm as American as they can get. Every
Fried chicken,
right? You name it. That stereotype is there. But I'm like the biggest Serbian realtor in Richmond.
Oh, really?
I'm very big in the Sicilian community. But that's where my business comes from. And I just love the way they look at things, right? We live in arguably one of the best countries in the world. The opportunities are there. If you don't think so, travel. You know what I mean? And they see that. And they remind me to look at it that way, which I love. Like I love seeing it through their eyes. When you hand them the keys to a property and they're like, yeah, but in my country, this wouldn't have even been possible.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy the way that they do look at it, and it's crazy how hard they're willing to work to get there. We take, in our country here, unfortunately, there's too many people who have taken this lightly, and they never pay off their home. They're so comfortable with that they never have any opportunity to improve themselves. But that's the mentality that what's going on right here now. Whereas my average international client pays their house off every 7 years. And I had one guy, this is going to be an absolutely nutty crazy for those of you who are on this podcast paying attention. I had a landscaper who is paid, in essence, $18 an hour, but he was a millionaire. He owned 5 properties, and all of them were free and clear. And the average price, if he were to sell these properties today, was $300,000 apiece.
Yeah, well over $1 million.
Well over $1 million. And he was getting ready to buy another one, which he planned he was going to put, get this, he was going to put 50% down on another $300,000 home, and he was going to have it paid off in 7 years.
But and everybody, I'm speechless because how many clients do we deal with where you're like, look, we need $10,000 for a down payment, and they're like, can't do it.
Can't do it.
Not going to do it. And they make double that.
They make an incredible amount of money. But this guy, here's the thing, is our priorities are so screwed up. Because you go look at the ladies, they have all these fancy fingernails, they have the latest phone, they have the latest hairdo, they have the latest lashes, they have the latest everything. They even have their teeth extremely whitened and like glowing white, like serious stuff. But here's what we get into is that cost just alone for the fingernails every month. I have no idea what it costs, but let's say it's $100. That's $1,200 a year. Okay, and then you add that to the phones. The phones are not cheap anymore. You're dealing with $1,200 there, but if you're trading them in, you're making the payments on the other place, which is on your cell phone bill. So people just don't conceptualize some of the stuff that they're doing, and they're setting themselves up for disaster.
Well, they underestimate what they can do. They overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 7. In this case, right?
Right.
They go, well, that's, I had a rough day. I need a piece of pizza or an ice cream or whatever.
Yeah, but get this. Let's go back to this landscaper guy, okay? He is making on each one of those. He's got 5 homes. He's living in one. He's got 4 rentals. He's making $2,000 per rental. That's $8,000 a month in passive income, not including his regular $18 an hour landscaping job. And so when you start looking at it from that standpoint, this dude is making hay, and he is going to live a very comfortable life into retirement because he focused. Now, he's an immigrant. He got here, who knows when, but he bought the homes, and he fixed the homes, and he rented the homes. And he's continued that cycle throughout. And it's really made a great thing. But think about it from this standpoint right here. how did he get his first one? That's what I mean by serving the family, is how can you create a mentality with people? How can you create that atmosphere with people that when they come to you, they understand that you're really, truly there to serve them and to help them get to that next level. That's why when a lot of people say, hey, well, I'm thinking I'd like to invest in real estate, many times I'm talking to them about, well, then let's not buy the $600,000 house now. Let's buy the $200,000 house now or $250,000 house now, and then let's trade up. Let's go to the next house in a year. Let's buy a duplex or a triplex. Start getting that rental income, because there are provisions within some of these loans to where if you're going to occupy a duplex, triplex, or quad, you can get it for 3.5% down. And you can totally do this. I have a military guy. Get this. This is phenomenal information. This guy right here, he's like the lowest enlisted level, okay? And he went to Fort Lee,
right,
which is just down the street here. He decided to buy a duplex in Petersburg like 3 years ago, like when it was still kind of like still morphing into that direction where it's starting to help.
Has it stopped?
It's morphing in the right direction.
I'm just joking.
But he bought the duplex for like $110,000. That duplex now is worth like $250,000. And he's and just this last year he vacated it and went and bought a new one for himself. And so now he's got 2 rentals going at the same point in time as what he's doing. And we were able to show him the math on how this would work so that he could actually perform it. And so this is where the process of the loan officer plays either to the advantage of these clients or doesn't. Because when the loan officer's having a meeting with them, is it really truly about just that transaction, or is it about their life? Okay, so when I'm looking at people and I meet with people and I talk to people, I want to know what they're trying to do. What's the strategy with this house? What's the short-term strategy? What's the long-term strategy? Because if the short-term strategy is I just need a place to live, well, that's great. No sense in throwing money away. I get it. But are you going to convert that to your first rental? Because sometimes all it takes is for somebody to expose the vision so that they know what that vision can be and that they can step in and make it happen.
Yeah, we did what was called the snowball. I'm sure you've heard of that. That's what I did personally. We bought one, we poured all the money in it, we got it paid for, and then, you do the next one and the next one and the next one. And so now I'm, 10 deep in properties, and I don't have them all paid for. We've leveraged and been able to do some other things. But that's definitely right up the vein of what you're talking about. It's very possible. It's very attainable. Now, it's a little trickier than it was a couple of years ago because where we live is the 3rd fastest appreciating city in the country. So if you bought 3 years ago, it was a lot cheaper than it is today. But to your point, there are going to be some areas where the opportunities are still there. Like you mentioned, Petersburg and Hopewell,
right?
Prince George. There's definitely ones there. And what I've been telling clients is it's like a bullseye, right? Richmond is kind of the center and everything radiates out. You can have, there's 3 terms that we're dealing with. You've got condition, you've got location, and then you've got price. And you can only have 2 of them. If you want the location, then you're going to pay the higher price, right? The location and the condition, right? You're going to pay the price. If you want, the other, then it's not as, then you can get a lower price, right? If you can let the location slip a little bit and maybe go a little further south and not be within 5 minutes of the restaurants and that sort of thing that you're going to eat at once a month anyway, you can drive that day, then it is attainable. You know what I mean? But I mean, again, going back to the mindset of what we're working with a buyer. What are your goals? Where do you see yourself? Hey, buy that house in Hopewell now. It will be worth more. We'll sell that. We'll use that money, even if you're not going to do investment. We'll use that money as a down payment and you'll move up and up and up, as opposed to, well, I can't get what I want, so never mind.
Yeah, I think that people are short-sighted when it comes to that, because I think that, and I'll just kind of share my story, it is very personal when it comes to that, because when I first bought my first house back in 1996, it makes me feel extremely old, and I know I look it, but I don't feel it. But here's the thing, is in 1996, I wasn't making a ton of money. In 1996, we were freshly married. I had 2 kids. I had a 3rd on the way. We bought a house for $42,000. Now that sounds amazing until you find out that it was an abandoned home It didn't have any windows. It didn't have any doors. And I actually had to put all of those in prior to closing just to be able to close. That was a condition of closing. And my realtor didn't do what they probably should have done, which is say, hey, Chris, look at the risk you're taking in putting windows and doors into somebody else's house before you actually own the property. Nobody told me that. They didn't tell me the risk. I just like, oh, it has to be done. Well, let's go. So I went and I didn't put expensive stuff in. I just kind of threw stuff in so that I could close on the deal with the idea of changing them out later. Okay. But nowadays, kids want granite countertops. They want the 3-car garage with the riding mower and stuff like that. Whereas, the struggle was real. The struggle was extremely real. I don't know what your house was at the beginning, but those are the things that I think we've missed out on. The generation right now has totally missed out on the fact that the struggle is real and that it needs to be there so that you can build beyond that.
Well, knowing how to learn, right? Mm-hmm. It's like if you go to like a kid athlete, the really talented 4-star recruits rarely become Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the guy who got cut, has a chip on his shoulder. Drew Brees, I mean, I feel like they've gone through it, said, like, all these guys had adversity and they learned how to learn, and they just wanted it worse than anyone.
So there's a great book about that. Have you read There's No Plan B for Your A Game?
Yeah, they gave it to us.
Oh, my. Was that a transformational book for me? Mm.
It's funny how certain things just hit you right.
Yeah. It opened, just no different than what we're talking about with some of these people, with clients, when you start orienting them to how to make it work, or orienting them how to invest, how to buy, how to set yourself up. When the light bulb goes off, it's like, holy cow, it's a process. Just no different than what you just shared.
And I also found it funny because that was Bo Eason, and he talked at Peak, right? And out of all of the guests, because when we go to these conventions, these are Class A, top-end, speakers. He was my least favorite because we'd heard the podcast, and I said, man, he's going to come in and he's going to do his thing, and he's very aggressive, and it's sales and that sort of thing. And I'm double relational. Like, I'm as relational as they get. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my coach has to remind me to make money. She's like, yeah, it's really great that you helped them with this, this, and this. Did you sell them a house? And I'm like, oh, no, my bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to hear him, he was my favorite. Like, by far, I got the most out of him. When I left Arizona, I was like, okay, it's okay to be a salesman. It's okay. Like, let's go. We're going to help people. That won't change, but it's also okay to be intentional in our business, right? To remember that this is a business. It's not a charity. And in order for us to be able to serve, because that's the other thing. Same thing with agent propositions. If I give you all the commission, there's no money to do the things to make it rain, right? There's no to make the phone ring. There's no money for that because I've given you, every dollar there is, and then there isn't any in the budget to continue to grow our business. Mm-hmm. So it's okay to remember that, and it's a balancing act, right? The value proposition has to be there, and they need to make some money. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be paying, and they should make a comfortable living, but at the same time, we can't give it away until it hurts because it will hurt everyone.
So what do you think? So this is just a total rhetorical, maybe not an answerable on this podcast, but what do you think that needs to be?
That is the question. The number that I have been doing is about 30%, like for the team. I've heard 50-50. We've had all sorts of people on here. I think a lot of that's going to be dependent on price point too. Like when they're taking higher percentages, I'm finding they're living in Salt Lake City, Utah, or Washington, D.C. There's so much money. Like the price point is so high that 50% is a good living or a lower percentile. In Richmond, we tend to be a pretty inexpensive city for the most part.
So the question with that, because that's something that's actually pervasive in the mortgage industry right now, because no different than the solo agent in real estate, where you're limited.
Yeah. Very.
Very limited. And so you're probably in the process of building a team around yourself and things like that. I'm the same way. I'm limited. Now, let's go back, and you can throw out stats all you want, but 2021, 22, 23 was the rougher of the years so far. 21, sure. I served 314 families. I'm going to tell you that 314 families by yourself with an assistant, because I only had one assistant at the time, is about enough to kill you, just to let you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually in the process of trying to reinvent myself to try to build some of that out so that I can serve more families and cast the vision. Because here's the thing that I've learned from that book with Bo Eason is if you can cast the vision for what you're trying to accomplish, who you're trying to serve, and you can get a bunch of people who are interested in serving at the same level, the same category, and helping people like this homeless guy, or helping people like this immigrant, helping people like these families who are just like this veteran, get them set up so that they can make decisions for the long term in their life, and then they can start earlier than I did. I didn't actually start investing in homes until 2 years ago. I bought my first investment home. I wish I'd have started sooner. Totally wish I had done it. But I didn't. So if you can start casting that vision and getting appropriate people in there, how many more people could you serve at such a high level, and how many lives can you actually transform and change? That's the question that I'm wrestling with right now, and what I'm actually doing to reinvent myself.
Well, it's also an important one. It's really, really tricky for us. We believe we are, we're Superman, right? Like, you built this business. Nobody's going to serve them as high as you are, right? Nobody's going to do it on the level that we do. And at some point, we have to come to that realization where I'm doing 10 in a month. I can't pay attention to them the way, my buyer's agent or showing agent can, right? They have 3. It's the most important deal to them because they're not working that many.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that acceptance was really big for me. And I'm still really working on the kinks. And then the other thing, if you're doing this team, do you have enough coming in to feed them, right? Because we do the system, so they're supposed to be working their own database. But if they could do that, they don't need you, right?
Right. Well, some people are not set up for sales.
Sure.
Okay, some people are more set up. So the sales mentality, the way I see it, is you're not really there to process. You're there to hunt. And the hunters are not good processors.
Well, they're literally opposite skills.
What I'm seeing is the more focus. So this gets start back to almost the beginning of our conversation where I said, remember I was saying that I was doing the shotgun approach, and in essence, there wasn't a networking meeting I didn't go to in town. There wasn't a phone call that I didn't make. There wasn't somebody I didn't follow up with. There wasn't. I was like shotgun. But 95, 98% of my business the first year came from people I already knew. Okay. Coming back to that, I was hunting. I was very good at hunting. But when things would come in, chasing that pay stub down was not my strength. Now, I'd get it. We'd still close on time, but that process was very bumpy. There are those who would absolutely wilt and die if they had to go to a networking meeting. They'd just wilt and die. They're just not meant for that kind of thing. But they would process all day long. They would using the hunting scenario, they would be skinning and processing that meat all the time. And that's what they love to do. And I think that's kind of what you're looking at with buyer's agents, is most of your buyer's agents are probably a little bit better suited to handle what's in front of them rather than do what you do, which is go generate, which is to go make it happen. And I've seen that while I can process, and I can probably do it at a very high level, that's not what drives me.
That's not the highest and best use.
Well, it's not even best use. It's going back to this book that we were talking about. What drives you?
Right.
And what drives you and your why behind it, if you focus in, the more granular you become about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what I see is the more granular you get, the more your results are in that area. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so, I'm reinventing my process right now to try to think through how to get to that point where I can cast the vision to where I have a bunch of processors who have the same vision of helping these people. Mm-hmm. I mean, we need people who are well-heeled too, who may buy that $400,000 to $600,000 home as well. But I want them to, whether they're buying a $600,000 home and this is their home for the next 30 years that they're going to be living in, or this is their first home and they're an immigrant coming in straight off of whatever boat it was that they came in on, we're serving that family at such a high level to where they, number one, they understand what they're getting into. Number two, if the loan type isn't what they need for the long term, but it's what they need to get in the door, we're going to show them how to change that so that they can build wealth and not be paying for stupid mortgage insurance that doesn't disappear for the next 30 years.
Right.
We're going to show them how to refinance and when to refinance, what the cost is to refinance, why it's not a good idea to refinance back into a 30-year, why it's a good idea to do certain things. And you'd be amazed at how many people don't know that.
So what you're saying is that you're providing more value. We're looking at the family different. We're serving the family. We're attracting the people that want to serve the family the way we do.
Right.
How do we communicate that to people that don't know us? How do we get that phone to ring the first time?
That's a great question. I don't know that answer.
That's
the $1 million how do you make it work kind of thing. I don't know the answer to that one.
I was going to say, because we've talked about that on an agent level. It's like, I do know more than a lot of other agents.
Right.
You know, I'm a Class A contractor. I know I know how houses work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't do contracting work. I have that license, you know, and I grew up in construction. I just know a lot about houses, and I know the process and what we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the trying to serve people, but how we get that message out to attract more people. Like for you, I would imagine a lot of your clients to come through agents.
Yeah, I would say 90% of them come through, well, let's go back. It's not quite 90%. I have about 75% come through real estate agents.
Mm-hmm.
About 15% come in through Google, and about 10% from past clients.
I'm impressed that you get anything through Google.
Non-paid for, but it does work. I'm actually closing a couple here this month.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I want to say I'm 87% by referral. And the rest of the percentile has more to do with, like, I met them in person, face to face. I've yet to get marketing to the point where it's at the tipping point. Like, everything short of the tipping point in my mind was wasted. I mean, it's all momentum. It's going in the right direction. But, you know, it's not, you know, I might have met them at an open house or something like that. It's not where they're going, hey, look, we see your presence online, we see your videos, we're going to call you. And I, you know, and you know me well enough to know I've got a lot. I mean, we've got podcasts and videos and restaurant videos and all sorts of things, but none of them have hit. I mean, I found them all to be validators. Are they valuable? Yes, to people I already know. But as far as like anyone new going, wow, you know, like that hasn't happened for me yet.
Yeah, there's definitely an inflection point there that sometimes it takes a while for the general public to read into it. But there's so many people who market like that too that I have to say that our culture is attracted to the shiny penny and to the flashy lights. They're not necessarily attracted to the people who really truly are vested in them.
Well, it goes back to, you know, another speaker, Ron Tite, and the concept car versus the assembly line, right? They make the Corvette because it attracts all that attention, but they make way more money on Chevy Cruises.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what I mean? They sell, you know what I mean? The normal family boring car is where Chevy's making their money. Now, they need the Corvette to make you pay attention to them, but, you know, it's the same theory. So what tweaks have you had to make? Because I always go to the conferences, and I know they say, oh, there's all these other entrepreneurs at the conference. Not everybody's a realtor, but most of us are realtors. So how do you make that tweak? Do they have a different spin on it for you guys?
Oh, you're talking about the Buffini conference we're coming to? No, actually they don't. They don't have a unique spin, and sometimes I feel like I have to spin it myself in order to be able to make it work. My coach, Aaron, he's been very helpful with more. I would say that more than anything, intuitively, we kind of know what we need to be doing intuitively. Sometimes the biggest issues that we face are mindset issues. And so I would say that the biggest benefit that I've received from my coach is mindset.
Okay.
When it comes to that. Now, having said that, the tweaks that you're constantly making, lead gen is always a question, is how do you scale it? And the scaling is the biggest issue that I'm facing right now. And I kind of explained a little bit of how I'm getting ready to scale that because, in essence, what I'm starting to do is trying to get my assistants more involved in the processing and leaving me a little bit more on just specifically the hunting side. Now, that has yet to materialize completely because we're still tweaking our way through that. And there are some gaps in knowledge as we go along. I mean, I've had to be in the Green Beret trenches for so long doing this stuff that in essence I don't really think much about every activity. I just kind of do it because I know it. But now I have to download that activity to my assistants, who in essence have to be able to duplicate it, but also duplicate it at an extremely high level. And so that's something that's probably going to take a little bit of time to go with, but I think that we'll be ready for all of that by the spring market of 2024. And so it's all coming. It's just one of those things that if you don't realize the cracks in your business until you have more business than you can handle, and you can see the pressure that it creates. And so 2020 and 21, which were like at the height of what we were doing, that's where the cracks in the business showed up, and where we had to kind of start looking at how to plug them and how just to get through the year. But then now we're starting to really address those and put on thicker layers and try to put this into a point where it makes total sense.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everybody's got to do that, and it's kind of the calm before the storm right now, right? Like, we know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like, businesses, if there's anything on market right now, now's a great time to buy, because it is a little slight bit slower. And now that depends on price point, and that depends on area and location and all of those things. But that's what I'm seeing.
I don't know if it does, though, because I don't know if you saw the latest article that just came out, where it was, I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look who wrote it, but they were relaying information that they saw on these major platforms like Zillow and Redfin. And they said that both of those platforms now have said that the bottom is over when it comes to housing. That we're going to be seeing it go right back now. So what that means for those of you in the public, you guys thought it was going to go like this and then start working its way back up slowly, like we saw in 2009 through 2016. That's not the case. What we've seen is this, is a very, very, very small dimple, and that dimple really, if you didn't take advantage of it, it's gone.
I'm still seeing, statistically, I think you're right. I'm not arguing that. In our area, I still think there is a slight lull, but when I say that lull, it's like the house that nobody wants.
It's the ugly stepchild.
Right. 2 years ago, there was no ugly. The ugly stepchild flew too.
Right.
Like, it could be total garbage, and somebody'd be like, "I'll overpay for that."
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have that right now. We have it doesn't have any doors or windows, and there's no Chris Parks to buy it. So, it's going to sit there a minute.
Stupid enough to pay for that.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's going to sit for a minute right now.
Yeah.
And part of what I'm trying to get across to sellers is you do need to make it right. If you make it right, you're going to get paid. You don't make it right, you rush it to market, maybe you're going to get paid, or maybe you're going to chase it down. I will say this, the other tricky part is pricing. There isn't a lot of inventory. So without a lot of inventory in sales, because we had low inventory the past 2 years, but everything was moving, right? So we still had a lot of transactions. This year we don't have that. So going to price things is a lot trickier. And month to month, interest rate, goes up. We're in this market. Like, there's been so many micro markets this year that have been tricky. You've brought stuff to the market that this is multiple offers, no problem. And it's sad. And you've had other properties where we brought in and you were like, man, I don't know about this one. And I think I priced it too high, and damned if you didn't get a multiple offer on that one. That part has been tricky from the agent standpoint. Just figuring out where we are in that week. I was even joking, like, if it rained that weekend, maybe you're a little slower. Right? Or it happened to be the weekend everybody went on vacation.
Yeah, that seems to be July for me. Everybody went on vacation in July, so... That's okay. They need a vacation. A proper vacation is what I'm calling it.
Well, you could finance them a beach house, right? They're on vacation. Right. Tell them to look around, pick one out. Let's do this.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy things that are happening in the market right now with that. But I do have to say that overall, homes are still very, very much selling. People are they're getting a good deal if they're sitting they're getting a good deal if they're willing to jump in. And by that, what I mean is it is a little bit of that dimple right now.
Right.
You got a little bit of that dimple. Now, whether we're coming out of that dimple or not, it's hard to say, but more than likely we'll be out of it, especially if the rate forecast holds. The rate forecast being fourth quarter, first quarter, we're going to start seeing dip, and third quarter, fourth quarter of next year is going to be the trough. If that's the case, everybody's getting back in. It's just going to be the way it is. And the sellers are going to take advantage of it because we're going to see that dimple, and then we're going to see prices go back up.
Well, we need the sellers to take advantage of it to create inventory, because part of the problem that I'm running into is the sellers going, hey, man, I'd move, but where am I going to go? I don't see what I want. It's not worth giving up my 3%. People love their interest rate, which is weird right now, but they don't love it that much. They love it because they haven't seen the house making it worth it to move.
Right. Yeah. There was a great article about that. They call them golden handcuffs.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, fun times. Oh.
So let me ask, we're about to go to an event. What is your biggest takeaway from an event, Ben? Favorite quote, biggest takeaway?
So I've always been a huge Buffini fan, which is the event we're going to. Even before I got in formally into their coaching system, I believed in their format, which is treating people the way they should be treated and accessorizing them and helping them not only accomplish what their goals are, but set them up for even greater things. And so I believe that. One of the things, I don't remember if it came from him or not, but I believe it came from him. One of the statements that he made that attracted me early on is, if you want to get somewhere you've never been, you're going to have to do a few things you've never done.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and so that to me was, and I don't remember if it came from him or a speaker at one of his events or where exactly it came from. I may be even attributing it to somebody who's not even related to him. I don't know. But I do distinctly remember that specific one early on, and that one actually helped me get through a lot of the tougher times because it's like, I've never been here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to go there. So that means I'm going to have to do a few things that are extremely uncomfortable in order to be able to make that. And that's part of that book, too, No Plan B for your A game. You have to step outside of your comfort level and practice at a higher level in order to be able to achieve what you're looking to accomplish. And that quote has been something that stayed with me for 10 years now with this, because it seems like in this business, if you want to succeed and there's no such thing as rinse and repeat, because you really are spending your time doing things that you aren't necessarily comfortable doing.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good quote. That's one that I don't remember, but I like it. I'm definitely, I have a whole list of quotes for my personal philosophy.
Oh, really?
Yes, I do. And I write them down, and when I'm having a hard time, I go back and read and go, all right, I remember where I was when I liked that one, and that one's going to stick with me. Right now, I really like the Tracy Chapman song when they talk about, like, and I tweak the lyric to fit what I want, but it's like, we have to make a decision. We got to, make a change.
Why don't you sing it for us? Go ahead, sing it for us.
Oh, yeah, I'm beautiful voice. Everyone's dying to hear that. There's only 2 people listening to this podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
And my mom is already on the fence. I don't want to push her off, But basically it says, hey, we got to make a change today, or we got to live and die this way. Like that's it. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. You have to make that decision. You've got to put that on your plan, and then you got to go do it. Mm-hmm. The whole idea that the market, going back to our buyers, the market's not coming to you. Mm-mm. The prices aren't going to drop to where you can afford that house. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. So are you going to go save some money for that down payment? Are you going to adjust your expectations and maybe get a house in a little less condition, or move a little further out? But what are you going to do? Or are you going to sit there and sign another lease?
Right. Yeah.
As the third fastest appreciating city goes on by you.
Right.
Because it's not going to get easier. Not here.
Mm-hmm. So here's a crazy statement about the lease, and this is, going back to your people here. Did you know that if somebody's paying like $2,800 a month in a lease, that they're paying about $34,000 a year in that lease? Mm-hmm. And that $34,000 a year in that lease could actually be equity, meaning that you can sell it at some point and keep it, compared to paying for somebody else's equity?
Well, you're always paying a mortgage, right?
Yeah, you are. But nobody thinks about it from that standpoint. They just think about, okay, I'm comfortable with my rent payment. I got to live somewhere. I might as well just keep paying rent. Well, that's $33,000 at the end of the year that you're never getting back in any shape or form unless it's equity in a house that you're making the payment towards.
Well, that goes back to like, the interest rate's 7%, but it's 100% if you're paying rent, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That old famous analogy there. Mm-hmm. The whole date the rate and marry the house and all the things that we've come up with on social media to tell you people.
Yeah, but I think that until they're ready to absorb it and hear it, I don't think it's going to, once again, you have to be ready for the message. You have to be open to change. And sometimes until it's too painful to stay the same way is how long it's going to take.
Well, that goes back to, do you remember they put it on the screen. It was like the things that you have to do to change, and I'm butchering it because I don't have them in front of me, but I definitely wrote that down, and it was like, one of them was that it has to be painful, you know, or else you're not going to make the change. If you're numb, if you're comfortable, you're just not going to do it. It's, you know, I don't know, I'll post that in the show notes, but I thought that one was really cool. That was another thing I really got from it. Well, Chris, thanks so much for taking so much time with me. I appreciate everything you shared. It's been really fun.
It has. I hope that there are some nuggets in there for whoever might be listening, if your mom's still listening.
I don't know. We might have lost her. Dad's there, though. He loves it. He's diehard. You know, I don't think it matters what we do, he's on.
Oh, good.
So tell everybody where they can find you and kind of the best way to reach you if they need your help.
So that's a great question. So the best way to reach me is always through your favorite real estate agent. Work with your favorite real estate agent first, and obviously call Danny, and he can help you with that. Otherwise, you can go to my website, myrvamortgage.com, and all my information's right there. You can find me pretty easy. I'm not hiding.
And you're licensed in Virginia and Florida.
Virginia and Florida, yeah. Just starting to do some work in Florida. Trying to, you know, work a few winters down there, which would not be a bad thing.
Oh, you don't have to go bragging.
That would be fun.
The love of being a lender, you guys can be a little bit more remote than we can.
That is the benefit of that, is you're still working 24/7 like most realtors.
Sure.
But at least you can, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can work from anywhere.
That's great. Well, when we get down to San Diego, I will point out some of my friends who are in the Florida market.
Ah, there we go.
Try to help out.
I'm actually getting ready to market to the Florida market, so that'll be fun.
Very cool. Thanks again, Chris.
All right. Thanks much.
Bye.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to apply this information to your business immediately. This message will not self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, agents.